I had a strange feeling about my son and his wife, so I pretended to go to a cardiology appointment in downtown Calgary. Before leaving, I hid a small camera inside the old mantel clock my father built 50 years ago. While I was sitting in my truck at the Tim Hortons parking lot down the street, my neighbor Frank came running toward my window. He knocked twice and leaned in close. He grabbed my arm and whispered, "Check your phone at 1 o'clock. That is when they always show up. That is when you will finally understand what has been happening in your house." When 1 o'clock arrived, I opened the camera app on my phone, and what I saw made my heart stop beating for a moment. 68 years old and running a chain of lumber yards across Alberta teaches you to read people. You learn to spot a liar from across the room. You learn when someone is hiding something. And that Wednesday morning when I walked into my home office, something was not right. The feeling hit me before I could identify what caused it. My desktop computer was still on. The screen showed my login page, but I always shut it down completely at night. I have done that for 30 years. The power bill matters when you grow up poor on a farm outside Red Deer. Old habits stay with you. I sat down slowly in my chair. The leather creaked like it always does. I looked around the room. My filing cabinet was closed, but the key was turned the wrong way. I always leave it pointing up. Now it pointed toward the window. Someone had opened it and locked it again, but they did not know my habit. I pulled open the top drawer. The folders were there, but the order was wrong. My property deeds, which I arrange alphabetically by city, were shuffled. The Banff cabin deed was behind the Edmonton warehouse papers. The Calgary house documents were stuffed at the bottom under insurance forms. Someone had been going through my things. My wife Eleanor would have noticed this immediately. She had an eye for detail that I never matched. But cancer took her 6 years ago, and now I notice these things alone. I sat in the chair she bought me for my 60th birthday and felt her absence like a cold wind. I opened my desk drawer. The wooden box, where I keep my will and insurance policies, was facing the wrong direction. I always keep the hinges toward me. Now they faced away. I lifted the lid. The papers had been unfolded and refolded. The creases were different, sharper in some places, softer in others. Someone had read my will. My chest tightened. Only 2 other people had keys to this house. My son Michael, who was 44 and worked as an accountant at a firm downtown, and my daughter-in-law Sandra, who was 41 and stayed home to manage their household and their 2 children. Michael was my only child, the boy I taught to fish at Sylvan Lake, the boy I coached in hockey until he was 16, the boy who cried in my arms when his mother passed away in that hospital bed, holding both our hands until her last breath. I did not want to believe it was him, but the evidence was sitting in front of me. Someone with a key had been in my office. Someone had looked through my private documents. Someone was interested in what I owned. I thought back to dinner last Saturday at their house in Mount Royal. We were sitting in their dining room, eating prime rib that Sandra had overcooked. Michael poured me another glass of wine and smiled. "Dad, have you thought about what happens to the business when you retire?" I looked up from my plate. "What do you mean?" "Well, you know, you are pushing 70. The lumber business is changing. Big box stores are taking over. Maybe it is time to think about selling." Sandra nodded. She was wearing earrings that looked expensive, new ones I had not seen before. "He is right, Robert. You have worked so hard your whole life. You deserve to rest, travel somewhere warm, let someone else deal with the stress." "I like my work," I said. "It keeps me busy. But at your age," Michael continued, "things can happen fast. Heart attacks, strokes. What if something happens and you cannot make decisions? It would be easier if we had things arranged ahead of time." Easier for who, I thought. But I did not say it. I changed the subject and talked about the Flames game instead. But his words stayed with me. They circled in my head like crows around a carcass. Now, sitting in my office, with my disturbed papers in front of me, the pieces started connecting. The questions about my estate, the comments about my age, the shuffled documents. I got up and walked to the window. Outside, the snow was falling gently on the spruce trees in my backyard. I had built this house 32 years ago when Thompson Lumber was just 1 yard and 4 employees. Now I had 6 locations across Alberta, 47 workers, and properties worth millions. I was not ready to give it all up, and I was definitely not ready to be pushed out by my own blood. I picked up my phone and called Frank, my neighbor of 25 years. He was a retired Calgary Fire Department captain, 71 years old, and still sharp as a fresh axe blade. He picked up on the first ring. "Robert, how are you doing?" "Frank, I need to ask you something. Have you seen anyone coming to my house when I am not at the yard?" There was silence on the line. "Come over," he finally said. "We should talk face to face." I walked next door through the snow and knocked. Frank opened the door and led me to his kitchen. His wife, Mary, was out visiting their daughter in Vancouver. He poured 2 cups of black coffee and sat down across from me at the wooden table. "I did not want to say anything," he started, "because I was not sure what I was seeing. But your son and his wife have been coming by a lot when you are at work. Sometimes they bring another man with them. Tall guy, expensive coat, carries a leather briefcase." My stomach dropped. "How often?" "Maybe 5 or 6 times in the last month. They stay for an hour or 2. The tall man always leaves first. He drives a black Audi with one of those lawyer parking passes on the mirror." Frank slid a piece of paper across the table. I wrote down his plate number. Old firefighter habit. You never know when details matter. I took the paper and put it in my pocket. "Thank you, Frank. Robert, whatever is going on, be careful. Family can hurt you worse than any enemy. I have seen it happen too many times." I drove to my main yard on the south side of the city. My operations manager, Jim, noticed something was wrong the moment I walked in. "You okay, boss? You look like you have seen a ghost." "I am fine, just tired." But I was not fine. I was anything but fine. That afternoon, I drove to an electronics store on Macleod Trail and bought a wireless camera the size of a matchbox. The young salesman showed me how to connect it to my phone, how to set it to record when it detected motion, and how to save the footage to cloud storage that I could access from anywhere. I drove home and hid the camera inside my father's mantel clock. The old clock had not worked in years, but I kept it because he had built it with his own hands when he was my age. The camera lens fit perfectly behind the decorative metalwork. From that angle, it could see my entire office. Then I made a phone call. "Michael, it is Dad." "Hey, Dad, everything okay?" Yes. I just wanted to let you know I have a heart appointment tomorrow. The doctor wants to run some tests. Stress test, echocardiogram, that sort of thing. I will be at the Foothills Medical Center most of the day." "Oh no. Is everything all right?" "Just routine. At my age, they want to check everything twice. I will probably be there until late afternoon." "Do you want me to drive you?" No. I will be fine. You have work. I will call you when I am finished." "Okay, Dad. Take care of yourself." I hung up and let out a long breath. The trap was set. The next morning, I left my house at 8:30. I drove to the hospital, parked in the lot, and stayed in my truck for 15 minutes. Then I drove back to my neighborhood and parked on a side street behind a snowbank where I could see my driveway, but no one could see me. I waited. At 12:15, a silver Mercedes SUV pulled into my driveway. Michael got out of the driver's side. Sandra got out of the passenger seat. And from the back came a tall man in an expensive black overcoat carrying a leather briefcase. They walked to the front door. Sandra used her key. They went inside. I opened the camera app on my phone. The image was perfectly clear. They were in my office. Michael went straight to the filing cabinet and pulled out the property deeds. He spread them across my desk. Sandra and the tall man stood behind him, looking over his shoulder. "Everything is here," Michael said. "The house, the cabin in Banff, the condo in Edmonton, all 6 lumberyard properties, and his shares in the company." The tall man opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. "I have prepared the transfer papers. Once we get him declared incompetent, these documents will transfer everything to your name. All we need is a judge's signature." "And you are sure this will work?" Sandra asked. The tall man smiled. "I have done this before. Once we get Dr. Patterson's assessment, the court hearing will be a formality. Most judges do not question medical experts." Michael picked up the deed to my Banff cabin. "This place alone is worth $2 million. The house is another $3 million. The business. If we liquidate the properties and sell the inventory, we are looking at 15, maybe 18 million total. My hands started shaking. And what about the care home? Sandra asked. The tall man nodded. I have already spoken with Sunset Pines. They have a room available. Once the guardianship is approved, we can move him in immediately. After a few months, no one will question anything. Michael laughed, a cold laugh I had never heard from my son before. The old man will probably thank us. He has been working himself to death for 40 years. Maybe he will finally get some rest. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. My own son was planning to have me declared mentally unfit. They were going to steal my life's work, lock me away in some facility, spend my money while I rotted in a room I did not choose. Dr. Patterson, the tall man said, will submit his assessment next Monday. He has reviewed your father's medical records and is prepared to testify that Robert shows signs of early dementia. But he has never examined my father, Sandra said. The tall man smiled again. That is what the medical records are for. Age, stress, the death of his wife. It all paints a picture. The judge will see an elderly man who needs protection from himself. I watched them for another 30 minutes. They reviewed documents. They discussed timelines. They talked about which furniture they wanted from my house. They talked about me like I was already gone. When they finally left, I stayed in my truck. My hands were shaking, not from the cold, from rage. That night, I sat in my living room in the dark. I did not turn on the lights. I did not eat dinner. I just sat there in my chair, staring at the wall, thinking about what I had seen. Where did I lose my son? Was it when Eleanor died and I buried myself in work to escape the grief? Was it when I gave him everything he asked for and never taught him what it meant to earn? Was it when I missed his hockey games because I was closing deals? Was it when I paid for his wedding to a woman I never fully trusted? The questions burned, but the answers did not matter anymore. What mattered was what was happening right now. And right now, my son had chosen his path. The next morning, I called David Chen, my lawyer for the past 23 years. He had handled every contract, every property deal, every legal matter for Thompson Lumber. If anyone could help me, it was him. Robert, what is wrong? You sound terrible. David, I need to see you today. It is urgent. Come to my office at 10. I arrived at his downtown office at exactly 10 o'clock. David was waiting for me with a pot of tea and a worried expression. Tell me everything. I showed him the video from my phone. He watched it twice. His face grew darker with each viewing. This is fraud, he said quietly. Conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse. And if they are working with a doctor to falsify a dementia diagnosis, that is criminal. They are looking at serious prison time. What can I do? First, we protect your assets. Today we are going to transfer everything into a trust. The house, the cabin, the condo, the business, all of it. You will still control everything, but legally the assets will belong to the trust. That means even if Michael gets guardianship over you personally, he cannot touch the trust assets. Can we do that today? By the end of the day, I will call in every favor I have. What about them? What happens to Michael and Sandra? David leaned back in his chair. That depends on what you want. If you want to press charges, we can take this to the police today. They have enough evidence to arrest them. Arrest my son? Robert, what he is doing is criminal. He is not acting like your son right now. He is acting like someone who wants to steal from you. The words cut deep. But they were true. There is another option, David continued. We wait. We let them make their move. We let them present their fake documents, and then we catch them in the act with undeniable proof. Why wait? Because right now, a defense lawyer could argue they were just discussing options, just planning. But if they actually file those papers, if they actually go to court with a falsified medical report, that is when the charges stick. That is when there is no defense. I thought about it. How long? Based on what they said, they are moving fast. The doctor's report comes Monday. The court hearing will probably be Wednesday or Thursday. 1 week at most. And until then, you act normal. You do not confront them. You do not raise suspicions. You let them think everything is going according to their plan. I nodded slowly. I can do that. One more thing, Robert. You need to stay safe. If they are this desperate, they might try something else. Stay with a friend. Do not be alone with them. That night, I packed a bag and drove to Frank's house. I told him everything. He listened without interrupting, his firefighter instincts taking over. You can stay here as long as you need, he said. And Robert, I am proud of you. Most men would have confronted them already. You are thinking smart. I did not feel smart. I felt broken. Over the next week, I kept the camera running. Michael and Sandra came back twice more. Each time, they brought the lawyer. Each time, they reviewed documents and made plans. I heard them mention specific dates. Wednesday morning, Michael said. That is when Dr. Patterson's report goes to the court. Thursday afternoon, we have the guardianship hearing. By Thursday evening, we control everything. I called David. Thursday. The hearing is Thursday. I know. I already spoke with the RCMP. They will be ready. On Tuesday night, Michael called me. Dad, I need to talk to you about something important. Can we have dinner tomorrow? My heart was pounding. Sure, son. Where? That steakhouse downtown. The one Mom used to like. 6 o'clock. I agreed and hung up. Then I called David. He wants to meet tomorrow. What do I do? Go. Listen to what he says. Record the conversation. But do not sign anything. And do not agree to anything. The next evening, I arrived at the restaurant at 5:50. Michael was already there, sitting at a corner table. He smiled when he saw me. That familiar smile from his childhood. But now I saw what was hiding behind it. I sat down across from him. I had my phone in my jacket pocket, recording. Hi, Dad. Thanks for coming. Of course, is everything okay? He reached across the table and touched my arm. Dad, Sandra and I have been worried about you. You seem tired lately, forgetful. We think it might be time for you to take things easier. I kept my face calm. Take things easier, how? Well, maybe sell the business. Move somewhere quieter. There are some really nice retirement communities out near Cochrane. Mountain views, people your own age. Activities every day. Retirement communities, just to try it. Just to see if you like it. And the business, I know some people who might be interested in buying it. They would give you a fair price. Then you would not have to worry about anything anymore. I looked at him. This stranger wearing my son's face. What about the house? The house is too big for you alone, Dad. All those stairs, all that maintenance. It makes more sense to sell it and use the money for your care. My care? Dad, I am just trying to help you. Are you? Something flickered in his eyes. Doubt. Fear. What do you mean? I mean, are you trying to help me, or are you trying to help yourself? He pulled his hand back. I do not know what you are talking about. I think you do, Michael. We stared at each other across the table. The restaurant noise faded away. Dad, you are not well. You are confused. That is exactly why we need to take steps now, before things get worse. What steps, Michael? Signing over everything to you? Moving me to a care home? Having a doctor who has never met me declare me incompetent? His face went white. Who told you that? No one told me. I have eyes. I have ears. And I have a camera in my office. For a long moment, he did not speak. Then his expression changed. The concerned sun mask cracked and fell away. I saw what was underneath. Cold calculation. Fine, he said. His voice was flat now. You want to do this the hard way? We can do this the hard way. By tomorrow afternoon, you will be declared legally incapacitated. Dr. Patterson has already filed his report. The hearing is at 2 o'clock, and there is nothing you can do about it. You would really do this to your own father. You have so much, and you refuse to share. You just keep working, keep hoarding, keep controlling everything. Well, it is our turn now. Mine and Sandra's. We deserve it. You deserve what you earn. You have earned nothing. He stood up from the table. We will see about that. Enjoy your last day of freedom, Dad. He walked out. I sat there alone, staring at my untouched steak. Then I took out my phone and called David. It is happening tomorrow, 2 o'clock. The hearing. I know. I already coordinated with the RCMP. We will be ready. I drove back to Frank's house and did not sleep that night. I lay in the guest bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. 43 years of building, 32 years in that house, 6 years of grief since Eleanor passed, and now it all came down to tomorrow. At 1:15 the next afternoon, I arrived at the courthouse in downtown Calgary. David was waiting for me at the entrance with 2 RCMP officers in plain clothes. "Are you ready?" "As ready as I will ever be." We went inside. The courtroom was on the 3rd floor. Through the small window in the door, I could see Michael and Sandra sitting at the front. The tall lawyer was with them, and next to them sat a man in a gray suit. Dr. Patterson, I assumed. David squeezed my shoulder. "Wait here. Let them make their move first." I watched through the window as the hearing began. Michael's lawyer stood up and addressed the judge, a serious-looking man in his 60s. "Your Honor, we are here today to petition for emergency guardianship over Robert Thompson. Mr. Thompson is 68 years old and showing clear signs of cognitive decline. We have a medical assessment from Dr. Patterson confirming early-stage dementia. Given his inability to manage his own affairs, we request that his son, Michael Thompson, be appointed as his legal guardian with full power of attorney over all assets." The judge reviewed the documents. "These are serious allegations. Is Mr. Thompson present?" "No, Your Honor. He was not informed of this hearing due to concerns about his mental state and potential for agitation." That was my cue. David pushed open the courtroom doors. I walked in behind him, followed by the 2 RCMP officers. "Your Honor," David announced, "I am David Chen, counsel for Robert Thompson. Mr. Thompson is very much present, very much competent, and very much aware of what is happening in this courtroom." Michael spun around in his seat. His face went white. "What are you doing here?" Sandra hissed. I walked to the front of the courtroom. "I am exercising my right to defend myself." The judge raised an eyebrow. "This is highly unusual. Mr. Thompson, are you represented by counsel?" "I am, Your Honor. Mr. Chen has represented me for 23 years. David approached the bench and handed over a thick folder. "Your Honor, I am submitting evidence that this entire petition is based on fraud. The medical assessment from Dr. Patterson was fabricated. Mr. Thompson has never been examined by this physician. Furthermore, we have video evidence of the petitioners conspiring to steal Mr. Thompson's assets through forged documents and a falsified dementia diagnosis." The judge examined the documents. His expression hardened. "We also have audio recordings of the petitioner, Michael Thompson, admitting to this conspiracy in a conversation with his father just yesterday evening." Michael stood up. "This is ridiculous. He is lying. He is confused. That is exactly why he needs a guardian." The judge held up his hand. "Sit down, Mr. Thompson." He sat. "Dr. Patterson." The judge turned to the man in the gray suit. "Did you personally examine Mr. Robert Thompson?" The doctor shifted uncomfortably. "I reviewed his medical records and made an assessment based on—" "Did you examine him in person?" "Not exactly, but—" "That is perjury, Dr. Patterson. And you," he turned to Michael's lawyer, "if you knowingly submitted a falsified medical report to this court, you are facing criminal charges and disbarment." The lawyer started sweating. "Your Honor, I was not aware. Save it for your own hearing." The judge turned to the RCMP officers. "Officers, please arrest these individuals. The charges are fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse, and perjury." One of the officers stepped forward. Michael's eyes went wide. Sandra tried to move toward the door, but the other officer blocked her path. "Michael Thompson, Sandra Thompson, you are under arrest. You have the right to retain and instruct counsel without delay." I watched as they put handcuffs on my son. He was pale now, shaking. "Dad, please. I am sorry. I did not mean any of it. Please help me." I looked at him for a long moment. This man who had been my little boy, this man who had sat beside his mother's hospital bed and held her hand as she slipped away, this man who had hugged me at her funeral and promised we would get through it together. "You made your choice, Michael. Now you have to live with it." They led him out of the courtroom. Sandra walked behind him, crying, her expensive earrings catching the fluorescent light. The lawyer followed, already on his phone, calling for his own attorney. Doctor. Patterson was escorted out last, looking like he might be sick. When they were gone, the courtroom fell silent. The judge looked at me. Mr. Thompson, I am deeply sorry you had to go through this. The petition is denied. Your assets and your autonomy are fully protected. Thank you, Your Honor. I walked out of the courthouse with David beside me. The sun was shining for the first time in a week. The Chinook winds were blowing warm from the mountains. Calgary spread out before me. Beautiful. Indifferent. How are you feeling? David asked. I did not answer right away. I did not know how I was feeling. Relieved, sad, empty, angry, all of it at once. I just sent my son to prison. He sent himself to prison, Robert. You just made sure he did not get away with it. We walked to his car. He drove me back to Frank's house. 4 months later, the trial concluded. Michael was sentenced to 5 years for fraud and conspiracy. Sandra received 4 years because she was less involved in the planning. Dr. Patterson lost his medical license and received 3 years. Michael's lawyer was disbarred and sentenced to 2 years. Watching them led away in handcuffs, I felt no satisfaction, only a deep, hollow sadness that seemed to have no bottom. I moved back into my house. The filing cabinet was organized properly now. The documents were in order. The clock on the mantel still did not work, but I kept the camera inside it. Old habits. Frank came over for dinner most evenings. We would eat together and watch hockey and not talk about what had happened unless I wanted to. He understood grief. He had seen enough of it in his years fighting fires. Jim at the yard took on more responsibilities. He ran the day-to-day operations while I worked less. I started volunteering with Habitat for Humanity, helping build homes for families who needed them. It felt right, using my hands to create something instead of just accumulating. 8 months after the sentencing, I received a letter from the prison. I held it in my hands for 4 days before I opened it. Dad, I do not expect you to read this. I do not expect you to forgive me. But I need to write it anyway. I am sorry. Those words feel too small for what I did. But they are the only true words I have. I spent my whole life thinking you owed me something. That because you worked so much, because you missed games and birthdays, because you were not always there, you owed me compensation. I told myself that taking from you was not really stealing. It was just collecting what was already mine. I was wrong. You built everything with your own hands. You started with nothing and created something real. You worked 80-hour weeks so I could have a good life. You paid for my education. You helped buy our house. You gave me a job when I needed one. And instead of being grateful, I resented you for not giving me more. Sandra fed that resentment. She told me we deserved your money, that you were too old to appreciate it, that we would use it better. And I believed her because I wanted to believe her. Now I am in a cell with nothing but time to think. And I think about Mom, about what she would say if she could see what I became. She would be ashamed of me, and I am ashamed of myself. I am not writing to ask you to help me get out. I know you will not. I am not writing to ask for money or visits or forgiveness. I am writing because I need you to know that I finally understand what you tried to teach me my whole life. You taught me that actions have consequences. I never learned that lesson until now. Take care of yourself, Dad. Michael. I read the letter twice. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer, next to the old photos of Eleanor. I did not write back. Not yet. Maybe someday I would. But not yet. 2 years have passed since all of this happened. Thompson Lumber is still running. I promoted Jim to partner. Frank and I still have dinner together most nights. His wife Mary makes butter tarts that remind me of Eleanor's. I sold the condo in Edmonton. Too many memories of trips with Michael when he was young, but I kept the cabin in Banff. I go there sometimes on weekends and sit on the porch and watch the mountains turn pink at sunset. And I kept the house, the one I built with my own hands, the one where Eleanor and I raised our son, the one where I learned the hardest lesson of my life. Sometimes at night, I sit in my office and look at the old photographs. Michael as a baby, Michael at his hockey games, Michael at his wedding. And I wonder where I went wrong, what I could have done differently. if there was a moment when I could have saved him from becoming who he became. I do not have answers. Maybe there are no answers. But I know this much. I did the right thing, the hard thing, the thing that cost me my only child. And I would do it again, because a man who does not protect what he has built is not a man. He is a target, and I refuse to be a target. I learned that respect is not inherited. It is earned through work and sacrifice. That family is not just blood. It is trust and loyalty, and showing up when things are hard. And that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who will hurt you the worst. The Chinook winds are blowing tonight. Warm air from the mountains, melting the snow, promising spring. I sit in my chair and listen to the wind and think about Eleanor, about what she would tell me if she were here. She would tell me I did the right thing. She would tell me to keep living. She would tell me that love does not mean letting people destroy you. And she would be right. She was always right.